Essex Model 7 has been one of the worst weapons in Call of Duty Zombies history until now. Treyarch is adding this not-so-fan-favorite weapon back into Call of Duty Zombies alongside the John Wick Ballerina event, and today we'll be taking it up against all of the enemy types currently in the game, including all 5 different main Easter egg boss fights. But first, if you want to see more early weapon reviews for Black Ops 6, be sure to drop a like and hit that subscribe button. The Essex Model 7 previously only ever appeared in Black Ops 4 and was infamous for being one of the worst weapons in the game. It was one of those weapons that you only ever touched during the camo grind and was approaching lost media status in the Call of Duty Zombies space. However, Treyarch appears to have finally done right by the Essex, giving it an absolutely masterful glow up. The base version of the weapon with few or no attachments equipped is pretty solid if you hit your headshots, but falls off in the early single digits if you don't make any upgrades to it, but that's pretty much like every other weapon in the game. When pack-a-punched, it becomes the Colonel's repeater and is an absolute beast of a critical kill weapon. The first bit of gameplay here, you've been watching me level it up on Liberty Falls, and I can honestly say it's one of the best weapons in the game if you're using a controller with Deadshot. Once you get to the late 20s, early 30s, it does start to struggle to penetrate armor, which can be a little annoying, but once you get to their critical spots, it deals unprecedented amounts of damage. When you do finally have it leveled all the way up, the attachments I'd suggest running are the monolithic suppressor, reinforced barrel if you're on PC, but the CHF barrel if you're on controller, precision handguard, extended mags 2, ergonomic lever, balanced stock, and rapid fire mod. Now that you've got it completely leveled up and you have all of the best attachments on it, let's see how it fares against the special enemies, starting with the Manglers. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, it does struggle against the armor. It's not too bad against Manglers if you shoot their cannon before their head, but if you're just going for headshots like I normally do with the Manglers, it takes a couple of shots to really break their helmet and get into their crit spot, but once you do bust that helmet open, man, it takes like 2 or 3 shots to put the Manglers to rest. It's a really solid gun here. It just does struggle against the armor. Next up on the enemy hit lists, we have the Doppelgasts. Now, with the Ghasts, it is a little bit harder, I'd say, to hit your shots, especially if you're playing on PC and you're using a keyboard and mouse, kind of like because the Doppelgasts are jumping all over the place. It's really hard to get them in a straight line and get those critical shots. But if you're on controller and you're just tapping with Deadshot, you should have no problem hitting the Doppelgasts. When you do connect on a headshot with them, though, it puts them immediately in the grave. It does so much damage to their critical spots. It just really is a little bit tough to hit the Doppelgasts. But it's really not the weapon's fault, I'd say. It's just more about, having to actually kind of lock in here and not let the Doppelgast be jumping all over your screen. For our last special enemy, we have the Shock Mimic from the Tomb. Now, the Mimic stands absolutely no chance against this weapon whatsoever. There's really no movement from the Mimics. They kind of run at you in a straight line. You just shoot them like once in the face and they're already dead. So again, with the Shock Mimics, not too bad. A little bit worse against the Doppelgasts and the Manglers for 2 various different reasons, but the Shock Mimics, you should have absolutely no problem putting them down in the grave in 1 shot. Moving into the elite enemies, and I'll be also classifying the elite HVT versions of them in the same category here. So we're going to start with the Amalgam first up. So similar to the Doppelgasts, like you really have to hit the critical spots of the Amalgams in order to do big damage, but it's like a 2 or a 3 shot into the 30s against Amalgams if you're hitting them directly in their heads. Again, this is going to be a lot easier if you're using a controller. If you have Deadshot, those are the 2 things I'd recommend when using this weapon. If you really want to make it one of the top, 8 best guns in the game, for sure, be on controller with Deadshot. But if you're playing PC, it's still not that big of a deal. Just lock in, hit your 2 headshots against the Amalgams. It works the exact same way against the Elite HVT version of the Amalgams. 1, 2 headshots, they're down on the ground. Against the Elite HVTs, might be like 3, but overall, lock in, hit your headshots, hit your critical kills, and it's going to absolutely fry Amalgams just about on the same level as a shotgun, which is amazing to me. The next elite we have is the Abomination from Liberty Falls. So again, sort of like the Doppelgasts, I'd say a little bit more so than the Amalgams. It is a little bit tough to hit the critical spots if you don't have controller, you don't have Deadshot, but if you do connect on the critical shots, it absolutely fries up Abominations. You do have to lock in though. Similar to everything else here, you really got to be paying attention. Now, the last elite enemy we're going to cover today before moving into the main boss fights is the Elder Disciple. I actually think it struggles the most against the Elder Disciple just because there is that first initial bit of armor similar to the Manglers where you get a couple of like just little tiny damage hits on them before you actually break through and get to the critical spots. So I would say definitely probably don't run this on Shattered Dale if you're trying to go for high rounds or you want to complement your Wonderwaffe in a high round strat. I would strictly just stay away from this one just because it does take a little bit to get through their armor, and I can imagine it's like that on the higher rounds too. So again, gotta be careful here, but once you do get to the crit spots, it just absolutely fries. Now on to probably what you're all here for, the main boss fights. We're going to start with Terminus against Patient 13. I actually think it's not that bad of a weapon to take up against Patient 13. It's not the best gun in the game. It's not like your top 5 weapons to run against Patient 13, but it actually does fare pretty well. The in-between stages where you're trying to stay alive while Patient 13 is underneath the water, super easy, super simple, don't even have to sweat at all because it will put the amalgams down very quickly. It will blow through the manglers very quickly, especially if you get in there in like the early to mid 20s. Should have absolutely no problem at all. Now, Patient 13 is a little bit bullet spongy with this. It's not like you're going to be able to just like 2-3 shot him and then go into the next phase. It's not, like I said, the best weapon in the game. It's not the drill charge that was in the game for a while there too, but it is a viable weapon if you wanted to take up against Patient 13. It's viable. You're going to get through the boss fight. You're going to have no problems doing it. It'll be a fun little challenge for you. Great way to level up the gun. On to the Liberty Falls lockdown against the HVTs. Man, this is where I think it absolutely shines. I don't think there's a better situation that you could put it in than the Liberty Falls boss fight because it cooks up. And again, it is a little bit tough to get through the mangler armor. We've been saying this the entire video here, where you kind of have to like put 2-3 shots into a mangler before you can get to the crit spots and take them down. But when you get to that last stage, the final phase of the Liberty Falls lockdown, and you're going up against that elite abomination, it is absolutely insane. You're able to 2-shot it right off the rip. Now again, I do know Pack-a-Punch 3, legendary rarity, it's going to be good, you know, you're going to be able to get through this, but I don't see why you'd be trying to do the Liberty Falls lockdown with the Essex model on like 45 or 50. Like, if you're going to try and do this Easter egg with the Essex model, you're probably getting into the boss fight with a maxed out weapon around like mid-20s at the latest. So again, this thing absolutely fries for what it is, especially on Liberty Falls. This is where I'd say it shines. Best boss fight to take it into. If you're trying to like do anything with it, definitely try out the Liberty Falls lockdown with this gun. Moving on to the Guardian of Citadel de Mor, this is where I'd say you're like, okay, I don't think I'd ever run it against the Guardian here. It is possible to beat him. I did not in my game. However, if you were really trying to sweat, you bring in the right combination of gums, you really lock in, and you really want to beat this boss fight, you could with this weapon. The Essex could get you through this, but it struggles to break the armor, which is a pain in the ass. It doesn't do very high damage against the boss fight, even with its armor revealed and you get those critical spots. Like, it's just not overall the best weapon to take into this boss fight. It's probably not even like B tier for this boss fight. You could do it. You could sweat it out and you could get through it, but I don't know why you'd want to do that when there's way better weapons in the game. So for Citadel, I just stay away from it. I wouldn't use it for this boss fight at all. It was fun to do the Easter egg with. Great for, you know, running around, taking down the amalgams, doppelgasts. Even like in between stages of the boss fight, we were running around trying to outlast the Guardian while he's in his little phase where you can't damage him. Pretty solid to take down all the other enemies, but yeah, I don't know why you'd want to do this against the Citadel de Mor boss fight. It's not that good of a weapon to bring in. You could, but I personally wouldn't. Moving on to the Sentinel artifact from the tomb, this is actually where I was surprised the most with this weapon. Now, I did say it was better against the Liberty Falls lockdown, and it is, but it's actually a really good weapon to use here against the tomb, in the tomb boss fight, because there's so many of the HVTs, special enemies that you'll have to take down. Again, it's not great for the armored zombies, so when you do get into the boss fight stage where you have to take down the elite armored zombie, I would just use the ice staff for that. But if you're just taking down normal enemies here, even the elite HVT amalgam, elite HVT doppelgast, same thing with the mimic, like, you can just absolutely fly through this boss fight with this weapon. Again, it's not the best weapon to take in against this boss fight, but it is extremely viable. And even the damage against the Sentinel artifact, I think it's like 9 shots with it before it breaks, which sounds like a lot, but it's really, really not. If you got a decoy, if you got a Casimir, if you got Ether Shroud, or put an ice staff shot down at your feet, you'll be able to completely break the Sentinel artifact before having to turn around and shoot another ice staff shot down at the ground. So it's really solid. Definitely surprised me here out of any of the other maps. I'd say this is probably the second best boss fight to take it into, still with Liberty on the top, but it's more than viable here. If you really wanted to bring this in against the tomb boss fight, definitely would recommend at least just trying it for a little bit of a challenge. Not too hard, but definitely not the worst boss fight to take it into. Last up, we have the Z-Rex from Shattered Veil, and if I'm being honest, this is kind of much like Citadel de Mor, where it's like you could beat this boss fight with this weapon if you really sweated it out and you really wanted to, but I don't know why you would. You actually do get a lot of critical damage against the Z-Rex. If you can get him in like his rib cage and his gills, when those light up green, you can do a lot and hit him hard for heavy damage if you can get to that, but like the wait for that and the amount of ammo you got to try and burn through to get to that stage is honestly, it's just not worth it. You're only doing like 4,000 or 5,000 critical damage to his eyeball every time you shoot him. I think the max I got maybe was like 8k, which it's not great, but you do get to the side of him, you get to his rib cage, and those light up. If you do mass damages there, you can take him down for big chunks quickly, but it's like the amount of time you got to spend running around trying to kill the zombies, trying to kill the exploding zombies, run around and survive on top of taking down the Z-Rex, especially when he gets into the later stages of the boss fight where he's just like heavily aggroed on you. It's not great. I wouldn't personally run this ever in this boss fight. Obviously, we're doing it for the point of the video. I'm trying to show it off, but yeah, definitely. I would say overall in the main boss fights here, I'd stay away from Citadel Daymore with this. I'd stay away from Shattered Veil with this weapon, but Terminus is probably the one big main boss fight you could take it into and have a good time. Liberty Falls Lockdown, you're going to fly through this just about as fast as any other weapon you'd use in the game. And then the same thing with the Tomb. It's not the best weapon to use in the Tomb boss fight, but it's more than viable and a nice little challenge if you're looking to replay that map or do something fun while you're camo grinding this weapon out. I would definitely recommend taking it into those 2-3 boss fights, but for sure, stay away from Citadel Daymore, stay away from Shattered Veil. That's it for the Essex review, guys. I had a lot of fun with this weapon. I was expecting it to be really, really bad considering how awful it was in Black Ops 4, but overall, I thought it was pretty sick. It's a nice weapon to use against the zombies. It's pretty fun to just hop in. You don't really have to be ADSing the whole time if you're playing keyboard and mouse. You're able to kind of hip fire a little bit, and you get the nice crosshairs. It's a little bit bigger than most of the other crosshairs in the game, but to get peak value out of this weapon, definitely be aiming in. Definitely be running Deadshot for the armor boost, even with the augments for depth perception. Like, you gotta kind of kid some certain things out to make this one of the top 8 weapons in the game. It's not one of one, it's not the Maelstrom shotgun, but it is a fun weapon and a good weapon that we're getting added in here in a mid-season event or in a seasonal event that sometimes otherwise wouldn't be great weapons to have. Like, we've had a couple of those bust weapons throughout the year that just suck when they get added in and they're not worth going for. This is not one of them. This one's fun, especially if you were a fan of Black Ops 4. I'd highly recommend just hopping in and testing it out or playing with it if you do have the nostalgia of the Chaos storyline or BO4. It was fun. I enjoyed using it. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Be sure to drop a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Look at the rest of your day. Stay safe, stay hydrated. It's getting warm out there. Peace.